welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back. Mark from Rams Up here, and we have another of our Ram fan rap sessions. Joining me today, Mark Corbett. How's it going, Mark?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. So tell everybody where you're from.
I grew up in Hawaii, which is where I became a Rams fan. My dad was in the Navy, so I grew up my youth and my teen years out there. So followed the teams from the '70s, and that's where I became a fan. That's the only team you got in Hawaii in the '70s was the LA market, so that's all we could watch.
Oh, okay. And your dad was a Ram fan as well?
No, he's actually a Cowboys fan, so it was always button heads in the house.
He's nice. Yeah, and the Rams and Cowboys, man, back in those days, you had a lot to talk about, I guess.
Yeah.
Some big time Ram games. Okay, so you're in Connecticut now, though, right?
Yep. I'm in Connecticut. Been here the last 40 years now.
Oh, okay. So tell us a little bit about where you live. Is it the proximity to closer proximity to New York?
I'm actually right smack dab in the middle between Foxborough and the Meadowlands. We're about an hour and a half either way. I'm right in the middle. Hour and a half out east to Foxborough and about an hour and a half to the Meadowlands.
So I can deduce you're more surrounded by more Patriots, Giants, Jets fans?
More Patriots fans than anything.
Now, is that just a more recent thing, though, over the last 15 years? People gravitating?
Since the big Brady boom there in the early 2000s, it's all Patriots fans now around this area. Hardly any Giants or Jets.
So let's go back now. So you're in Hawaii as a teenager?
Yeah, toddler to I was about 16.
And so what era was that? Was that the 70s? I'm not trying to date you here, but was that the...
I was a big Youngblood fan and Dreyer and all those guys back then. That was just a great defense. Saul Reynolds. That was just a great time to be a football fan. Those were football players.
Yeah, they were. You're right. And those bookend at defensive ends, Dreyer and Youngblood. And they had Jim Youngblood. And then you get into the 80s, pretty good defenses too. They always
had a pretty good defense, and they always had a good running game. They never had great quarterbacks until they got Warner. I mean, I watched Pat Hayden and Fence Verragamo and all them guys, but they were never elite. But always, could do what they needed to do.
And so, when did you start playing football? Were you start playing in high school?
I started playing in Hawaii when I was about 7 years old, so the early '70s, and I played all the way through college. I've been coaching the last 33 years.
Yeah, I gotta get you synced up with Paul Walia. He does some coaching out there in New York.
Yeah, I listen to him. I listen when he's on the show. Yeah, I love talking football.
Yeah, him and Ian both know their X's and O's a lot better than I do. So, so you moved to Connecticut at some point, and you brought your Ram fandom with you.
Yep.
And so, how do you feel about the Rams team this year?
I cried when AD retired. I think everybody did. Everybody, we got to watch the greatest defensive football player play. And I got to see him play live probably a dozen times. Anytime he's played the Jets or the Giants or the Patriots here, I've been at every game. And I usually try to get right behind the Rams bench and just watching him warm up. He was just a different person. He's just special.
Yeah, the dedication is obvious, and 365 days a year, from what I hear. So, do you have any special moments that you remember growing up as a Rams fan that you want to share? Is there?
I got to go to the year that the Rams won their first Super Bowl when Warner was there. I got to go to the playoff game that sent them to the Super Bowl. I went to St. Louis with a friend of mine. We actually got to go to the game, and actually every playoff game they had in St. Louis, we flew down and went to the game. I remember all of them. I remember the year they beat the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl. It was just, it was surreal. We had never experienced that. I had never experienced it live, but in '99, it was something else. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, that team was special. It was even they were so good that when they got into the playoffs, it was I almost felt like there was no doubt they were going to win until they got
Oh
to the
yeah,
Super Bowl. I knew the Titans were going to give them a fight because they
yeah.
had played that year, and it was a it was a battle. But
Well,
I
I mean,
just
they came out of nowhere. Nobody when Warner took over, nobody knew who he was. I didn't. When
right.
they that was the one team that won a Super Bowl that really came from nowhere. They were not even picked in the top, 20 that year. Just really, it was something to see. No, we haven't seen
Yeah.
it since.
So what's it like being a Ram fan in Connecticut? I mean, there probably aren't a lot of Ram fans in your
You
neighborhood, I'm
know,
guessing.
I only knew one or two until the year they won the Super Bowl, and then you saw some more. But the first, 20 years before that greatest show on turf, I might have met one other Rams fan up here in that whole 20 years. Just not big here on the East Coast, especially here in Connecticut.
Have you been able to get to SoFi yet?
I went to SoFi a couple years ago when they won the Super Bowl. We were at the NFC Championship game with my son. He's stationed out there, so I
Oh,
flew out there and surprised him with tickets to the game. And we were there when they beat the Niners. We were right looking down on when Darnold took down Garoppolo on that last play and he threw that interception. We were
right.
right there, going crazy.
Nice. So your son has become a Ram fan as well?
He's slowly. I made him buy a Stafford salute to service jersey for that game, but he had a great time. It was just
So
that's one of the special moments.
so is he a Navy guy too?
He just got out of the Navy a couple months ago, but he was stationed in San Diego. He's living there now, but he was there when we went to the game. He was stationed in
Oh,
San Diego.
nice. Well, that's a nice place to visit if you have
Yeah,
to, if you get
expensive.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you ever how do you coach high school football? I don't Did
Yep.
we share that yet? You're a high school football coach. Tell us a little bit
I'm
about that.
defensive coordinator for our local high school. Yep.
And so here's a question I have for you. You had told me beforehand that you're a football coach, and it got me thinking. There's questions that I have, and I throw these. We talk in, and Paul talk a little bit about this. If you're the Rams defensive coordinator, what's your plan for Michael Hoyt this year?
Oh, well. As of up to yesterday, when they traded Ernest, I would have said he wasn't gonna. He was just gonna be a rotation piece. But who knows what they're gonna do now? I mean, there's so many pieces moving in the last 2 or 3 days. They kept 5 linebackers on that roster, which I didn't really expect them to keep more than maybe three. So who knows what? And you got a new defensive coordinator, Shuley. Who knows what his plan is? I mean, they saying that front is going to be totally different. I think they're going to get after the quarterback a lot more than they obviously have in the past. But I think he's going to more rely on his nickel backs and his secondary, and just get after They got Verse and Young and Fisk. That's just going to be a very athletic, fast front. They're going to be moving them around. That's what I would be doing. That's what we do with our front. We don't have a big front in the high school, but we move them around and we just get after the quarterback.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm Hoyt. He started out as a defensive lineman, and they really moved him to the edge, outside linebacker, out of need. And I'm wondering if they use him like as a five technique, or like you say, maybe just move him around depending on the
I
situation.
think they might move him around with the AD retire. I mean, he was primarily a three tech, but they kind of let him, dictate where he was going to play, and the defense kind of just morphed with him. Without him in there, I mean, I guess it could be Turner, but Turner's just basically he can play a three tech, and that's about it. AD can play a three tech, a five tech, a shade. Sometimes you see him that ghost edge when he would come off the edge, not frequently, but occasionally you see him there. Um, Hoyt, I think they're going to move him. I really couldn't tell you because I was really shocked with what they did with their linebackers the last 48 hours with the trade, keeping the 5 linebackers. I'm really curious to see what he's going to do with that front seven, with those players he kept and with the new players they have and all that speed and youth. It's going to be fun to watch. That's the one thing.
Yeah, that's what I just keep on trying to accentuate is everybody's focusing on the two guys we lost, and it's a pretty big deal. but there's guys like even guys that we maybe aren't even talking about, Brandon Jackson and Nick Hampton, that could be a really big piece to this defense, on a
Yeah,
rotational basis. But got some young guys and we're really deep. Is there anyone on defense that especially excites you that maybe Ram fans aren't talking enough about?
I'm glad that Jackson wasn't placed on the the IR to start. So I think he's going to have a big role. And I like the big tackle. I forgot his name from Clemson. I think
Tyler
he,
Davis.
yeah,
Yeah.
Davis. I think he is going to step in. He might take Brown's spot there in the middle. He looked good in the preseason from what I watched. Good footwork for a big man. He takes up space. He moves lateral great. I think he's going to be special. The youth, I think, on that defensive front is going to be special. I think they really got something. They put together something there that the fans are going to be surprised to see this year. If
Yeah.
AD
And
was there, man, I would say they're going to be a top five defense if he played. But we're not going
so
to see him.
from a defensive coordinator's perspective, doesn't it make it difficult for their opponents in their first couple of weeks of their offensive coordinators to game plan against this
Oh,
defense?
100%. I think Detroit is going to have their hands full. Shula, nobody knows what Shula's going to do. I'm sure it's going to be somewhat similar to what Rashad ran there, but he's got his own way he wants to do things. I think, like I said, I think that defensive backs, he looks like he's going to use more of speed and coverage and just to get after the quarterback. Um, what they're going to do in the middle, I think they said Reader, from what I understand, Reader's going to have the green dot. So I'm assuming he's going to be on the field starting. I really don't know how that panned out. I'm curious to
Yeah.
see how he's going to do in the middle, but we'll see with that. With, like I said, that new front, it's a whole new front than when he was there before in the Super Bowl year. I mean, he's playing with different guys up front. All of them are different now that AD's gone. So it's a whole new front in front of him. Maybe he'll be better behind this front. We'll see, but it's going to be interesting that first game. I think the Rams defense is going to come out and put it on Detroit. We'll see, but I don't
Yeah,
think Detroit's going to be ready for him.
yeah, the Treater thing is kind of puzzling. You go from Ernest Jones to Troy Reader, and I can see why Ram fans can be a little bit deflated, I guess. But you also got to consider, they've surrounded him potentially with a bunch of athletes. Trey White, if Trey White and D Will can do a good job on the outside, Cameron Curl, and, John Johnson's a decent safety as well. And if Cam Kinchins comes along,
They got a
and then
great safety room. They had five good safeties, and really I forgot
Quentin
who's really
Lake,
playing star, but even the star player they have
Quentin Lake,
six safeties on that roster, and a couple can play corner.
oh,
So they only kept four safeties. So if they get a little bit of depth problem with the cornerback, I'm sure one of them safeties is going to move out there. But I just think they got great veteran. I was happy they re-signed Johnson. I just think he's a veteran leader in that secondary. He's going to really help them out. Curl's a veteran, and he's a big hitter. I think the defense is going to be much better than what everybody thinks, especially that first couple of weeks, like you said. Nobody really knows what they're going to be coming out doing. They didn't show anything in the preseason. So I think they're going to have everybody's attention those first 2 or 3 games, especially Arizona. They usually play Arizona pretty well. I expect that to be a pretty good game too.
yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that they're going up against one of the better offensive lines in the opener, but it'll be a good gauge for this
Yeah,
for the young guys, the pass rushers especially.
I think Fisk, like I said, Fisk, Young, and Verse. I think they're going to give every offensive line they face fits. Just that speed. I watched a little bit of the preseason practices, and they come off the ball hard, and they were getting a Dak in those joint practices like quick, real quick. Even Dak said, "Man, those guys were in my face," and that was going against their top guys. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
Cowboys
really
have a
fun.
decent offensive line every year, it seems like.
Yeah.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Do you have any prediction for the Rams this season? You going optimistic, or you wait and see?
I'm right in the middle. I mean, the over/under in Vegas, I think, is 9. I think they're going to get to 9 or 10. If everything falls their way, they can avoid injuries, which is tough nowadays, especially with that 17-game schedule. They could probably get to 10 or 11, but I'm thinking 9 or 10, and they probably get in the playoffs. And I think by then they're going to be a dangerous team like last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I like people like to say, I think Paul has pointed this out, and a lot of people point this out. The two biggest pieces are a great head coach and a great quarterback. And so there you go. The Rams got
top
two.
5 of both. They got top 5 in both.
Yeah,
and they got
right.
The skill players on their offense I just think they're a top 5. They're elite. I mean, you got if Kupp is back this year, that receiving group 4 or 5 deep is going to give people just fits.
Yeah,
so if Stafford stays healthy, man, I think he's sitting on a big year again.
And Corum and Williams too paired up back there.
Punch, yeah.
Yeah, feel really good about that. The one thing I am still concerned about, unfortunately, is our kicker. Crossing our fingers that maybe he's okay. Maybe he's okay, but until we see it, right?
Kickers, you can have as a defensive coordinator, you can have the greatest game, and that kicker can cost you a win or a loss, and it just drives you crazy.
Yeah. Pardon?
We'll see with Gar. I mean, hopefully, you can't do much worse than what we've had the last 2 years. Knock on wood.
I just wish we had seen, something to reassure us in the preseason. I mean, he hit a 48-yarder in the one game. Other than that, though, I'm going to be pretty nervous if he walks out there late in the fourth quarter against Detroit.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately. So, hey, let's go through my 6 questions. I don't know if you've heard these before. You probably have. So how many Ram games have you been to approximately? Sounds like you've been to a bunch. About a dozen. And different cities. So you've seen them at the Meadowlands, I assume?
Meadowlands, Foxborough, been to St. Louis, and I've been to SoFi.
Okay, not the Coliseum. Never. You didn't
I've
get
been
to
to Coliseum. I was there at the Coliseum a couple years ago when they beat the pants off Dallas in the playoffs.
And what about Anaheim?
No, I never got to Anaheim. Nope.
Yeah, either did I for whatever reason. So I'll bunch these next 3 questions together. Who's your favorite Ram of all time? Who is the greatest Ram of all time? And who is the most underappreciated? And I think I could guess who you're going to answer the first 2.
I'm going to say the greatest is AD. My favorite is Youngblood. I use Youngblood and AD as examples for my defensive line. What was the other one? I'm sorry. Favorite?
The most underappreciated.
Oh, that's a tough one. Probably Holt, because he's not in the Hall of Fame. There's no way he should. He should have been in the first year. I just don't get it.
Yeah. Just for reference, I change my mind on all these all the time too. But my favorite, I kind of go by era. You probably remember Nolan Cromwell.
Yeah.
And then more recently, Isaac Bruce and SJ39, Steven Jackson.
I was about to say Jackson, too.
But the greatest, I agree with you. I think AD might be the greatest player ever, period. The things he did. And at defensive tackle, it can be difficult to, on the screen, impact the game, obviously. And I have people that have texted me during a game, where was AD today? Well, there was 3 offensive linemen smothering him the whole game. That's where he was.
I mean, where have you seen an offense plan a game plan around a defensive tackle? Never.
Yeah.
Maybe the only one ever.
Yeah. And underappreciated, I usually go to SJ39 because I just think, he was on the Rams at the wrong time. But I think he's starting to get some recognition across the
Yeah,
league for how dangerous he was.
if
And
he'd have been playing with McVay, he'd have a ring. He'd be leading the league in
yeah,
rushing.
yeah, man,
He's just smart.
yeah, he was fun to watch.
Yeah,
He made that 7, 8, 9 years he was with the Rams bearable actually.
barely
So
bearable.
this is a good question for you. You're from you grew up in Hawaii more or less, then you go to Connecticut. Who's your second team? Any sport, college, pro? Who's your assuming the Rams are your first team? Maybe they're not. Who's your other team you root for?
USC, USC,
Oh,
I'm a
really?
giant USC fan. Yeah, Ronnie
Oh,
Lott,
okay.
all them guys. Same
So
same
that
era. That time. That
yeah,
time. I loved USC from the '70s. You know, tailback U. They had great players. Most Heisman's. I'm just a big USC fan. I've been out
yeah,
to the Coliseum for a bunch of their games too.
yeah. That makes sense. If you're in Hawaii as a teenager in that era, man, USC was
Yeah,
one
yeah, it
of
was a
the
great
top.
time. Great time for college football for
Yeah,
USC fans, '70s and '80s.
yeah. My second team for the record is UCLA basketball. I used to be the Dodgers, and I still root for the Dodgers, but I'm not invested as much as I used to be. I think with the
They had
problem
their
with
they had
pardon.
their dynasty too. The Bruins.
Yeah, right. And I the problem with the Dodgers is this may sound funny, but I almost got bored with the success. I'm rooting for the Dodgers and I'm rooting for the Rams. And in the 70s, the Dodgers were going to 3 World Series and winning one. And then in the 80s, they did pretty well. And meanwhile, the Rams are just constantly knocking at the door. So I just became fully invested in the Rams, and yeah, I kind of followed the Dodgers, but it just wasn't as there wasn't that need there, that desperation
Yeah. Well, that
driven.
one Rams team and they got to the Super Bowl against, if they had played anybody else but that probably one of the greatest teams ever, that Steelers team, they're probably beating anybody else they play. I mean, they had them tied, or they were down one going into the fourth quarter.
Right?
And so it's just
Yeah, that
tough to be in the second best team.
yeah, the 70s were just very painful. It was every playoff there was something that bit him, whether it was
Yep.
rain or snow or just crazy stuff. And
And they had that great defense for 4 or 5 years. They just, like you said, they ran into bad luck or whatever, but they just had a great defense for that. I remember 4 or 5 years, they had the best defense probably in the NFL.
Yeah, they won. They won that to get to the Super Bowl. They beat. I think I'm going to get this right. Tampa Bay 9-0. I think it was.
It was 9-0 or 9-3. It might have been nine.
Yeah,
It might have been 9-0, but it was nine to something three,
yeah,
3 or 0. But they won it with
that
their defense. They won all their games with their defense.
right. Let's see what else I got for you. What is your all-time favorite Ram moment? It can be a game you were watching, or a game you were at, or just exhilaration. And
That
there's a lot to
tackle
choose
against
from. The
that
tackle.
tackle against Tennessee in the Super Bowl, I think that's every true Rams fan that's their shining moment when he stopped Dyson a yard short of that Super Bowl. I mean, I just remember jumping on the ground with my buddies and just rolling around in a pile.
Yeah,
We just
and it was
never
such
thought we were
a
going to win.
yeah, and it was a strange play where you're kind of like, wait a minute, is it over? He's
Yeah, I
not in,
mean,
right?
we're looking at TV because back then it was tube TVs, so everything was blurry. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't think he got in. The guy next to me was like, he got in. I'm like, no, he's way short. So
yeah.
we just went back and forth for a minute till it was confirmed, but it was
And
great.
and that last drive by the Titans, oh man, that was painful.
Oh,
Give them credit. There was something about that Titans team that they were basically the opposite of the Rams, their style of football, just kind
yeah.
of smash mouth, but it
And nobody
worked,
thought that was going to be at the beginning of the year. Nobody would have thought it'd been the Rams and the Titans in the Super Bowl.
right? Hey, good stuff, man. So how's your high school football team looking?
We open up next week. We got our first scrimmage this Saturday, and then we open up against a big powerhouse a week from Thursday. So we got our work cut out for us, but we're going to give them a battle.
So how do they do it in Connecticut? Is it do they have like 4A, 3A, or how do the
We
divisions
just go by
work?
class. We have S, M, and L, which is small, medium, and large, and then there's a double MS, double S, and
And what
double
are
L.
you
So we have
guys?
six conferences, about 160 teams, so about 35 in each.
So how do you feel about your team this year?
We're hoping to get in the States. If we get 7 wins, we'll get in. We had 6 last year, so we're looking to bump that up one and get in. We just got knocked out last year. We were the last team knocked out before the playoffs, so we're hoping to get in this year.
You got any Division One candidates there on your
Yeah,
roster?
our tight end is being looked at by a couple of schools. I just had a player. He's going to be a freshman at University of Miami this year, so
Oh,
he's on the
nice.
roster. So we get some players. AJ Dillon for the Green Bay played for me. He just unfortunately he's out for the year.
So educate me one more time. Going to sound kind of ignorant here. What are the big universities in Connecticut? Or there's an Ivy League school in Connecticut, is
Oh,
there not?
there's I mean UConn's here. They're not a big
UConn,
football
okay,
team. They're big
obviously.
basketball. But BC is only about an hour and a half away. Syracuse is only 4 hours away. Those are the biggest Division One. There's not really any big Division One in Connecticut, Massachusetts, or Rhode Island. I'd say BC is probably the biggest.
And UConn, did I hear something about them potentially joining the Big Ten?
Yeah, that's on the table. We're going to see. We do our camp up at UConn every year, and I talk to Jim Moore now when we're up there. But that's the plan, is for them to get them into a bigger conference. Yeah, great,
Yeah,
beautiful facility up there. Brand
I
new.
think they're known more for their basketball team.
Yeah.
Although I think the Rams drafted, they had someone from UConn a few years back. I forget who it was. I thought, but good stuff, man. Hey, good luck to your football team,
Thank you.
and maybe we'll have you on sometime if you want to join us and talk X's and O's. That would be great. I think Ian and Paul would love to talk.
Yeah.
Ian's going to be doing a lot more, football analytics type stuff.
Yep.
And if you ever see anything you think you have something to contribute, pipe in, send me an email, and maybe we'll have you on a show sometime.
Yeah, if you want to do a big powwow with all of them, I'm always talking football with coaches all throughout the country. So that's my passion, is talking football.
And for those of you watching or listening, trying to get this rolling through every state. I mean, originally it was just like, hey, let's have Ram fans on. This was the original idea came from Ernesto Salgado of Puebla, Mexico. And then, we've had John Perry from Washington, David Willard from South Carolina, Rich Schultz from Pennsylvania, John Capatorto from New York, and now you from Connecticut. So, hey, we've got to get someone from Missouri on. There's got to be a few Ram fans left in Missouri.
I love when you do that. I love listening to those guys, because they all have unique stories about, their best memories of the Rams. And that's what it's about, really.
Yeah, and I think it's especially good for the young fans that don't appreciate what we went through especially in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And don't appreciate how good, people don't realize, and I try to educate people, and I think I just end up annoying them, but the Rams in the 1970s, you can make an argument, they were a top 2 or 3 franchise over the entire decade. They just couldn't get it done. They just couldn't, lock up a Super Bowl. But man,
I tell my kids, I say, listen, you can watch some of the film on. There's some great players playing today, but if you really want to watch good football, go dig up some old film of the 70s and the 80s. Those guys were football players. They just played football for the love of the game. I understand you can make money now and take care of your family and your families down the line, but 70s and 80s, those were real football players.
Yeah, all you got to do, and we talked about this a couple of times already, is, just find, I think I have a couple here somewhere in my room, a picture of Jack Youngblood, hands on hips, standing there, right? And the other guy I have a picture of here, is Tom Mack. Those two guys, man, just
the epitome. I got a helmet signed by Mack. I love Mack.
Yeah.
All them old time players I love.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, thanks a lot, man. It's been fun. And hey, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you want to come on again and talk some more football.
Yeah, you ever powwow with everybody and talk X's and O's, I'm always up for it. we got the season coming up, so I'm going to be busy for 10 weeks, hopefully a little longer, but I'm always looking to talk football.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot.
All right,
Talk to you
again.
soon. Okay, bye. Bye. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.